Hello everyone, my name is AJ and welcome to lesson 2 of the CS+Social Education Team. Today I'm going to be essentially introducing the syntax for the JavaScript language. In the next video I'll actually be working in a live example, but for now I'm just going to be kind of showing you the differences between languages you probably have already used and JavaScript on kind of the few basic things such as creating variables, loops, functions, etc. Alright, so without further ado, let's get started. So we can look here at declaring a variable. And you can see that I've included the syntax for Python, which is taught in Comp 110, Java, which is taught in Comp 210, as well as AP Computer Science if you took that, and then JavaScript down here. So if we just analyze this, you can see that in Python, the first thing you'll notice is that there is really no kind of, there's no keyword that you use to essentially define a variable, right? You essentially just write the name of the variable, you say then the assignment operator, which is the equal sign here, and then you also then include the value to the right of that. There is no semicolon. Also, another thing you'll notice in Python is that your variable names are in, I think they call this snake case, right? This is going to be snake case, right? And that is essentially the syntax for creating a variable. Right? Now in Java, it's a little bit different. The first thing you'll have is that you'll have the type, right? So in Python, the type of the variable is automatically assumed based on the value that you assign to the variable. So in this case, if I assign 16 to my variable, it's going to automatically make that variable an integer. However, in Java, you need to specify the type. So you need to say int here, then you have the variable name. Now the variable name in this case is not going to be in snake case, but it's going to be in camel case. So this here is going to be camel case, right? Then you have your assignment operator, and then you have your value, and then of course you have the somewhat annoying semicolon at the end, right? Now in JavaScript, it's a little bit different. You actually use a keyword to create a variable. So in Python, you didn't have a keyword, and in Java, you use you use the type. But in JavaScript, just like for and while and if and else and like throw, these are all common, I guess, keywords in the language. So when you type it in, often your IDE will bold it, or, it's kind of reserved for the language to do something. In this case, the let keyword is reserved by JavaScript to create a variable. So you can say let. Then you also have a camel case kind of word here. So you will write camel case, right, for your variable name. Then you have the assignment operator, you have your value, and then you also have a semicolon. So it's very important with JavaScript to keep in mind that you do have a semicolon here. All right. So again, just taking a look at the different languages, you have Python, right, which you essentially, it's the simplest. Then you have Java. Then you have JavaScript kind of somewhere in the middle, between easier and harder, because you don't really define, or you don't really describe the type of the variable. Now you can if you wanted to. So if I wanted to, I can say, right, let my int, and then colon, and then my type, right, equals my value. And you can do the same thing for Python too if you didn't know. Like, let's say I wanted to say int, I can say, my int, colon, and then the type, and then equals value. And that's how you kind of define the type for a variable, right? Now moving on to Boolean operators, this is now inside of if statements. So the actual syntax for an if statement is the same. So you still have, well, I guess in Python you have if, right? And then you have your condition, and then you have this colon, right? And then you have your code in kind of indented in here, and then you'd have your elif or something, and then you have else, right, down here, and then you have your code, right? However, in Java you have if, and then you have to have parentheses, condition, right, and then you have your curly braces, you have your code here, right? So this is going to be for Java, right? This is going to be for Python, right? And then you'd also have an if statement, you'd have an else right here, and you'd put some code. And the if statement in JavaScript follows the same thing that Java does, right? So it's essentially very similar to this. You still have, you have your if and else, you need to have parentheses around your condition, and then you have your code inside of these curly braces, right? But now, if we're actually just talking about the condition, that's where these Boolean operators come in. So you use these two vertical lines, which is actually kind of, I believe, above the backslash on your keyboard. This is the same, by the way, in Java too, but this is, how you define or. In a language like Python, you probably have X or, you literally write out or. But in Java, you use these two vertical lines, and that defines or in your program. So when you're writing a condition, you would use this basic syntax, right? Now, you might say not X in Python, but in Java and JavaScript, you use this exclamation point before a Boolean, and that says, not X. And then instead of and, which you would normally write out, X and Y, in something like Python, you will use X to and symbols, like this, and then Y. This is all stuff that you've probably seen if you've taken 210 or any course in Java, but if you haven't, this is the syntax that you use in JavaScript for Boolean operations. Now, of course, there is also an order of operations. When you're using arithmetic, you often think of PEMDAS, but with Boolean operators, you have this PNAO, which is going to be parentheses, not, and or. Okay? So you have parentheses, right? Not, and or. Right? And so now this is an example. As you can see, again, that if statement thing I was talking about, this is equivalent code, right? So if you see here, I have two variables that say X is equal to true and Y is equal to false, right? In Java, I need to define the type as Boolean. And you'll also notice the difference in the capitalization, where in Python, true and false are capital. In JavaScript, it's lowercase. And then moving from Java to JavaScript, you'll see that you use the same let thing now. You say X equals and then true and false in lowercase. And when you define these variables, JavaScript will automatically assume that X and Y are going to be Booleans, right? Now you can compare also your actual if statement. So you can see here, this is the syntax difference I was talking about, where you need to include parentheses, you need to include these, these curly braces on both Java and JavaScript. And then also the difference here, if X and not Y, right? X and not Y is replaced with, remember, order of operations, so not, you have this, right? And then you have and, which is going to be and. And that's where we have this X and not Y, right? So that's something very important to consider as well. And also another difference, which I've included in these slides, is how to print, right? So, you'll see this example in the next video when I actually do a practical example of all this stuff. But in Python, you just have this nice print function, just like this, right? In Java, you have this system.out, right? Like this. And then in JavaScript, you use this console.log, right? Because remember, when you're working with JavaScript, you're actually working now on a browser, and so you want to be able to log things on the browser, and that essentially is synonymous to printing out a value. And you'll be seeing that later in the next video. The last thing here, or I guess second to last thing I want to talk about, is going to be functions and defining functions. So obviously defining functions is a bit different in most languages, but if you look at Python, this is actually, I believe, wrong. This syntax here for Python is wrong. You don't actually have these brackets, but you have this. Let me see if I can write that out. You have this colon here in the same way. So you have def function name, you have a colon, then you have your code indented, right? But in Java, you have this like weird where you'd probably want to define a access modifier, either public, private, protected, etc. And then you have int, which is going to be your return type, right? The type that you're returning. In this case, is an integer, as you can see right here. And then you have the name of your function, and then in here you have any parameters, right? And in JavaScript, you actually have a keyword. You have a keyword. And the keyword you use is going to be function. So you're going to use this. Wow. Something about a smart highlighter came up. Yeah, you'll be using function here. Then you have your function name, and it also automatically detects the return type. You can define the return type as well, but you can just return a value here. And now you can see, jumping down, this is a few examples of functions in JavaScript. So you can see that these are two functions here that have been created, where you have the function keyword, right, that defines a function. So right here and right here. You have the name of your function, which I'll show in this pink color. So format name, and then convert to years. And then you have your actual like parameters, which you actually don't even need to type. You can just write in names, and again, JavaScript will automatically detect that. And you can see here I have a return and I have a console. However, if you do want to define, like if you do want to show that, if you want to, I guess, explicitly say that, okay, I want this type for an input, you can do that using the same colon and then type that I showed earlier with creating variables. And returning is in the same way. Just remember, again, you need to include your semicolons at the end of each line. And then this is an example of actually running these functions, right? So you have format name and convert to years. And then I have these random inputs in here, right? So this is essentially all that I have for this video. It's just really talking about the syntax difference between a language like Python and Java and the JavaScript language. And we'll actually be working with JavaScript a lot more in both the second project as well as in the next video. If you have any questions, on any of this stuff, feel free to ask in the comment section below, or, send me a message on Slack and I'll be able to help you. Thank you for watching, and see you all in the next one.